He asked me to marry him. He actually likes me. I would see him at church. After that, I would literally avoid him. Singleness is not a waiting room. It's a season of purpose. I needed to be certain that this was the person that I was supposed to be with. The first prayer that I prayed was, I had this image of an ideal person, but you yourself, you're not even it. You said this is what you're gonna do, and I believe that you're gonna do it. When is it gonna happen? Hey guys, welcome back to my channel, or welcome to my channel if this is your first time here. For those of you who are returning, I know it's been such a long time. There's been so many changes. A lot has happened within the past few years, but we're going to start with one topic at a time. And so, welcome, take a seat, grab something to drink, and let's chat. Okay, so if you have been on my channel, you noticed that the last video that I posted was my surprise proposal video. And so I've been getting so many comments, so many questions, just so many good, positive things on that video. And so I decided that why not make a video just sharing the journey of how I went from completely single to engaged in 8 months. So this isn't just a love story, but it is a testimony of faith, intentionality, and God's perfect timing. So if you are also trusting God for your own love story, testimony, marriage testimony, make sure to comment, subscribe, and keep watching so that we can get into the details of this whole story. Okay, so let's get right into it. So a little backstory. I wasn't always in the space of readiness to even be in a relationship, transition into an engagement, and now married by God's grace. I definitely went through a season where I had to heal, I had to grow, and I also had to trust that whatever God had promised me will be fulfilled in my life. And so I had to also be intentional about staying in alignment with where God had planted me and serve wholeheartedly while waiting. And so over the past few years before I met my fiance, now husband, I was just serving at my church and just focusing on my growth with Christ. And I believe there were so many things that I had gone through that I could not enter nobody's relationship or marriage with. And so I really needed that season of waiting and preparing and actually growing in Christ, although I am still growing. But just really needed that season to just be alone, be with God, and to have things pruned out of me and worked on before I could even enter into anything. And so one lesson that I learned in my singleness season is that singleness is not a waiting room. It's a season of purpose. You still have to live your life and do what God requires of you to do in that season. You shouldn't postpone your life until you get married, or you shouldn't not do something because you're waiting to get married first. You have to live your life. If it's a business that you want to start, do it while you're single. You never know. Maybe you meet a spouse who is into that business that you're doing, or who would genuinely be interested in what you're doing. And so I think one lesson that I learned is not to pause my life in the name of I'm waiting for a man to come and marry me. No, you have to keep living your life. That's by the way. But the key thing that I learned was to really be intentional with how I was spending my day to day, what I was doing, how I was serving God, and just making sure that I was in alignment with where God needed me to be in that season. Okay, so next I want to talk about shifting my mindset and preparing for what I had been trusting God for. So one of the questions that I get a lot, surprisingly, is what prayers did I pray? First of all, there's a scripture that says, it's not he that runneth or he that willeth, but God who shows mercy. I'm going to share just a little bit, just a few of them with you guys, okay? And so just a few prayers that I prayed, and I was very specific with these prayers because I knew what God had promised me and I wasn't seeing that in my life. And so I had to shift it into a different direction, pray the will of God for my life, and just to make sure that things are moving where it needs to be. essentially. So the first prayer that I prayed was, Lord, let all circumstances that need to happen for me to meet my God-ordained spouse happen. And so this meant that whether he was across the ocean in another country, whether he was wherever he was, any circumstance that needed to happen for me to meet this person, I prayed that the Lord will allow it to happen. Because it's like, okay, I know I'm supposed to get married, but ain't nobody in sight. The people in sight is not it. So I'm just like, something gotta give. So wherever he is, Lord, just orchestrate the circumstances for us to be able to meet. Yeah, that was one of my prayers. Y'all could take it. And then the next thing I did actually was I just made a video. I think some of you may have seen it, but I just did a declaration in a video. I didn't post it. I just saved it into my phone, and I'm actually going to insert it right here so that we can watch it.
April 10th, and I am documenting that, God willing and by God's grace, next year, 2023, if the Lord wants to expedite things, I am ready, Lord. Make me the wife that you have made me. Let it be made manifest in your timing and in your will. Let it be done in the name of Jesus. And I'm going to make this into a reel so that, first of all, by the time I put this on the camera and back out, my nails will be done and I might have a ring on my finger. I don't always do the right things, but your grace is.
So yeah, I just literally made that video just for myself, just as a prayer, just to remind God that I'm still waiting. So for it to happen that quickly, I was just actually mind blown. So the day that I realized I made that video was when I was traveling to go see my fiance, and I realized that, wait, I made this video in my phone last year and this is what happened? Huh? Okay, so a second prayer that I prayed, this one might sound a little bit crazy, but I knew the time was up and I could not leave this season without entering into God's promise to me. So this second prayer, I prayed that, Lord, let there be confusion, frustration, and disappointment in any extra marital relationship that my God-ordained spouse is in with anyone. So my reasoning for this is that, okay, if in the realms of the spirit, like if God knows that this person is supposed to be my spouse, why am I single and you're in a relationship or you're dealing with somebody else? Like, it's not adding up. So if that's the case, then if I'm single, wherever you are in the world, you got to be single too. So I just said, Lord, let there be confusion, frustration, and disappointment in any relationship that my God-ordained spouse is in with anybody else that's not me, because we could both be single together. So one of the key prayers that I also prayed was that when we met, that he should know that I am his wife and pursue me with the pursuit of Christ. And I was specific with this one because I know how Jesus Christ pursues us. Even when we're running away from him, he still chases after us. He leaves the 99 to come for the one. When we're acting up, God still loves us. He still shows us his mercies. And so this was the kind of love that I wanted someone to pursue me with. So I know sometimes like I could be stubborn or I'm just very skeptical of things. And so I just said, Lord, let this person pursue me with the pursuit of Christ, because if not, I'm actually going to miss what you have for me. And that is exactly what happened. I was literally running away from this man and he was still pursuing me. I'll share in just a minute how we met. My battery's about to die, and so I'm gonna charge it up real quick and be right back. And so alongside those prayers, I also sought God's guidance for my marriage. Like, I didn't want to get married just to get married. Like, what is the purpose of me getting married? Why do I even want to get married? What will come out of it? Like, am I just going to get married just for the sake of it? Or am I going into it because there's a particular purpose for me in there? So some of my prayers also consisted of seeking God's guidance for, okay, what is the purpose of this? Why should you even give me a marriage? Like, what am I going to do in it? And just really knowing God's mind for me in that area. Let's take a break. So let's talk about one of the biggest things that most women do when they are in that phase of like dating or thinking about marriage or whatever the case may be is the list. So did I make a list? Of course I had a list. I feel like I've always had a list, but the time where I actually finalized it was when I created that list from a place of prayer. Because before I had a list of a whole bunch of nonsense, but this particular one came out of a place of prayer. And so I just wrote whatever that came to my heart while I was praying. And so maybe I'll share just one or two things from my list. And then in another video, maybe we can get into like more detailed discussion about it. Okay, so one of the first things on my list, and I'm gonna start with the superficial one, was that he has to be tall. I always knew that I was gonna end up with like a big tall man, and so that was one of my things on my list. And sometimes people would think I'm crazy or like I'm being shallow or I'm being superficial. I knew in my heart of hearts that I would end up be with someone who is. And God is so funny. So before I met my now husband, there was someone who was interested in me. And I just saw the person like as a friend or whatever. And one of the things that I was battling with, not to say that there's anything wrong with like being with anyone short. No, none of that. One of the things that I was battling with was, okay, I know I want, but he's given. So I told God, I'm like, you know what? It's okay. Like, if this is what you want from me, who am I to say no? I'm not going to accept him because he's, yeah. So I was just like kind of talk of God, like, you know what, God, it's okay. Like, not everybody is going to end up with a tall person. Like, it's cool. Like, I'm okay with this if this is what you want from me. Like, if this is your will for me, because ultimately I just wanted to be in God's will for my life. And so I think that was kind of like a test on that part to see like, okay, are you just gonna dismiss somebody because they don't meet your superficial list, or are you actually going to get to know who that person is? I feel like that was a test, and shortly after that, clearly didn't work. But yeah. So ladies, if you have something on your list that you think is shallow or superficial, but you know in your heart of hearts that this is what you know you're gonna get, then keep it on there, okay? The next thing that I would say is like a major thing that I had on my list was someone who came from a Christian background and who was also serving God and had spiritual covering. This was important for me because I was also in church, also serving, and had spiritual covering, and that was what was leading and guiding me for the past few years. And so I really wanted someone who understood that and won't think that, oh, I'm doing too much at church, I'm always at church, whatever. So I just wanted someone who, it didn't have to be particularly in my church, but in your church. Okay, how long have you been there? Have you been serving there? Do you have spiritual covering that you're accountable to, and all of that? Because that's very important. If something happens and you don't have nobody who could tell you nothing, yeah, I'm not dealing with that. So I needed to make sure that you have someone that you're accountable to and I could tell on you on. There's so much more that I had on my list. Maybe I'll make a separate video and talk about the list. And so while I had the list, I also had to focus on my personal growth as well, character development, emotional, everything. I'm still learning, but ultimately I wanted to also be the person that I want to be with. Because sometimes it's like we make this crazy list and have this like image of an ideal person, but you yourself, you're not even it. Like, why should that person want to be with you when you don't got it together? So whatever list that you make sure that the person on that list also will want what you have to bring to the table. Okay, so before we get into how I actually met him, well, I can't tell the story without talking about my service in God's house and how that led me to meeting my now husband. And I know everyone's story is different, but for me in particular, service in God's house is what positioned me to meet my fiance, now husband. So I would say in my singleness season, like I knew that it was God's will for me to get married, but I wasn't like too focused on that or concerned about that because I knew it was gonna happen. It was just a matter of when and how. And so in the meantime, I just served. I was serving in my church's media team, just using the gifts that God had given to me to just give back to Him. So before I joined my church, I was doing my YouTube videos and all of that. And then sometimes like I would help other men of God like with their short videos and stuff like that. And so when I came to my now church, I remember, I think like the first few times I came or something, or after a few weeks or so, I went up to my pastor and I was like, oh, I want to make videos for you. And then I just joined the media team and then started making videos and serving however way that I was able to by God's grace. And so I realized that each time I would have to make a video, it would require of me to listen to the full sermon throughout, like from beginning to the end. And so all the teachings and all the sermons I realized were really impacting me and bringing me deliverance, because how can you be depressed when you're listening to a sermon about getting out of depression and getting out of bondage? And so I would literally have to listen to the full sermon and then make sure I cut it out and summarize the video and just get it put out there. During that season was definitely a lot of deliverance for me, through hearing the word over and over and over again. And then in 2020 in quarantine, I just asked if I can come over to their house to help with live streaming services online, since at the time all the churches were shut down and everyone had moved, well, some churches had moved to like an online streaming platform thing. And so during that time of 2020 quarantine, I went through so much deliverance, just being there and being able to pray all the time, hear the word all the time, just have someone to talk to about some of the things I was going through and just get guidance. It just brought so much deliverance to me. And it was in this season too where I was also able to build up, by God's grace, my prayer life. Our apostle would have us praying from 12 a.m. to 6 a.m. the next day. Like, you not going to sleep. You're going to stay up and pray. And so we would all just like pray from midnight till 6 a.m. Now knowing that that was also building us up, building capacity. And also by staying with them, I was able to see how a kingdom marriage is supposed to be, seeing that I didn't have that growing up. And so I'm just very grateful for that season and for just being in alignment with where God wanted me to be at that particular point in time. So during that season, I also learned how to live with different types of people, different personalities, different backgrounds, so many rebukes, but it was definitely much needed. And it also helped me to get out of my shell a little bit more, and just get out of my comfort zone. And so throughout this, there was a time where Holy Spirit had directed me to go to the house and help with the kids. No questions asked, just go. And at the time, my first lady was pregnant with baby number 6, and I don't know, I don't like seeing pregnant women like struggling. Not that she wasn't struggling or anything, but I don't like seeing pregnant women like having to do stuff and like, I don't know. Yeah, so I just wanted to go help her. And so I went, and let's say every day waking up by 5 a.m., getting to the house by like 5 or 6 a.m. to help them get the kids ready for school, or if they're traveling to go and minister, just being there to help take care of the kids, making sure that they're okay, and just really learning how to be around kids and enjoying their company. Like, that season was just, it was very much needed. And I would say that that season also protected me from like unnecessary dates and unnecessary relationships and all of those things. Like, there were times where I could have gone on a date or two, but I had to be at the house doing something, and later on I will find out that something happened with the person or it just wasn't going to work out. And so I feel like in that season of service, God also used it to protect me and not cause me to meet the wrong people who would steer me out of my path. And so I really thank God for that. It's definitely important to make sure that you are in alignment with God's will for you in your singleness season. Okay, so now we can get to the how we met part of the video. It's so funny because when I was in college, I used to watch a lot of long distance relationship videos and how we met videos, like Christian couple, how we met videos. And now I'm sitting here doing one. Is actually mind-blowing. Maybe one day I'll have my husband come and join me so that you guys can hear his side of the story. For the sake of this video, I'll just keep it a bit short, and then when we do the video together, we can get into like a bit more details and all of that. So how did I meet my fiance? How did I go from being single to engaged in 8 months? Okay, so during my church's 6th year anniversary, I decided to just stop by my pastor's house before going to church. And so when I got there, one of the brothers at church had called one of the girls at the house that another brother had purchased a set of drums, and he was asking if I can bring it to church. And so, I said, why not? I'll bring it. So when I got to church, I went into the foyer, and one of the guys that I knew was there. So I said hi to him, and then there were other guys there with him in the foyer. I didn't want to be rude, so I just said hi to everybody, not knowing that my now husband was actually a part of the guys there. I didn't recognize him. I only knew the guy that I knew there. And so I just asked them to help me take the drums out the cart. So on that day was when my husband said that he actually recognized me that day, but I didn't even. So the next day after church, when I was heading home, I just stopped by like the door to just say hi and just greet the new people. So that was when I remember meeting him, but he don't remember meeting me that time as well. And so I just said hi, asked him, oh, where's he coming from? Who invited him? Da da da, whatever. Didn't think anything of it, and then I just went home. And then on Sunday, after our media team meeting, I said, oh, let me put my bag in my car so that I can come back and take pictures. And so on my way back into church, he was also walking to church, and then he said hi to me again, and then we went into sanctuary and we're just talking. For some reason, it felt like I knew this guy before, but I didn't know him from nowhere. But we spoke for quite a while. I didn't think anything of it. I just thought like, oh, he's just visiting, he's gonna go back home, whatever, da da da, whatever. But I guess he had other intentions or whatever the case may be. Don't tell him this. But when I would see him at church, after that, I would literally like avoid him so that he doesn't talk to me. Yeah, like I'm like, okay, bro, it's cool. Like, yeah, I met you, said hi, cool. Like, you don't got to talk to me all the time. But yeah, I wasn't interested in anything. Like, it was just cool, nice to meet you. You're gonna head back. Great. But then the guy would not leave me alone. Like, he kept talking to me and all of that, and I'm just like, what is going on? And then later on, I realized that you said a prayer that this person should pursue you with the pursuit of Christ, and now you're running away. Interesting. But yeah, just to keep the story short, that was how we met, and maybe we'll go more into detail when he also joins for us to tell the full story. Okay, so let's talk about the dating phase. So we made it out of the talking phase into the dating phase, but that did not come easy because I was being kind of stubborn. Anyways, but I would say that he made his intentions very clear from the beginning. I wasn't confused about anything. Like, I wasn't going on Google typing no questions. Oh, what does it mean when he does this? What does it mean when he do this? No. I wasn't on YouTube searching up videos on how to do this, no. Like, literally every question I had before I would bring it up, he would basically answer it and clear up any confusion. And so I guess another prayer that I would pray, because to be honest, I doubt it a lot, was for certainty. Most people pray for clarity about the person or the relationship or whatever the case may be. For me, I know I was doubting a lot, and so I needed to be certain that this was the person that I was supposed to be with. And so for me, clarity is like, okay, right now I wear glasses, so I can't really see that far, but there's something written over there. I can't see it clearly what it says, but I know that there's something written there. So my mindset for praying that certainty prayer was that whether I believed it or not, this is what it is. And so it's not a fact that I need to like, I'm only gonna believe it if I can read it type of thing. It was more of like, whether I can read it or not, that's what it is. Even if I don't see it, Lord, let me know that this is what it is or this is what it isn't. So along the journey of going from single to proposed in 8 months was really being intentional and purposeful with the dating. I would always question, like, who sent you? Where are you coming from? Why do you like me? You don't even know me from anywhere. And not just jumping straight into like the lovey-dovey stuff. Like, that's cool, but it's like, okay. And using my head, not too much of my heart during the season, because I gotta do my investigations. It wasn't perfect because I really had a lot of doubt and questions. I just really wanted to be sure that this is what God wanted me to get into. And so sometimes I would question, like, why does this guy like me? And I would kind of give reasons for us not to be together, but then it's like, this don't make no sense. Like, if this is what God has for you, just go with it. And then also, before I even said yes to being a girlfriend, I told him to join my church's 21-day marriage and destiny fast with me before I would give him an answer. I really wanted to be sure that, okay, I have at least this time to see God's face concerning you two doing the same for me, because I don't like to date just to date and just be there. No. And so God is just so interesting, because the day that he asked me to be his girlfriend lady, that day, Holy Spirit told me to check a notebook that I had. And in that notebook was written that same exact date 1 year before, where I listed out the things that I wanted in a potential partner out of that place of prayer. And that date that I wrote that list down was that same exact date the following year that this man had asked me to be his girlfriend. And so to come back and see that that was the same exact date that it happened, I was like, wow, God, I see you. Okay, and so now we can finally get into the proposal. So we courted for 8 months, and he asked me to marry him. The proposal, how did it happen? The video's right here. I hope YouTube added the card. I think I'm gonna have to make a full video on the day before, the day of, and how it actually happened from my perspective. Was I really surprised? Was I not? Did I know? I think I'm gonna make a separate video for that. But the proposal itself was, I was like, is this for me? Like, is this mine? Because we're so used to going to other people's proposals that when it's for you, it's like, wait, this is for me? And I think one of the things I was thinking was like, he actually likes me. Like, he wasn't playing, like he was actually being serious that he likes me. But yeah, the proposal was just very emotional, because it's like, wow. So all these years when God gave me the promise, like all these years that I've been waiting, like, was this how it was supposed to happen all along? Like, this is what God had intended all along. And it was just very, it was emotional. And so I also remember maybe back in 2017, 2018, years ago, I remember sitting in my car and I was crying to God for his promise for me. Like, when is it gonna happen? When am I gonna meet him? And I remember it was pouring, like It was raining so hard and I was crying in the car. And the Lord gave me a song, and the song said that He's not a man that He should lie, that He's a faithful God. And so on the day of the proposal, after the proposal, it ended up raining. Like, it was thunderstorming. And I was sitting in the car with my fiance at the time, and I was like, wow, this is an evidence of God's faithfulness. I'm sitting here with the answered prayer. And so God is just very faithful. And I just want you all to be encouraged that if you're waiting on God for a promise, don't give up. Just remind yourself of what He told you every single day. Get some scriptures and pray it into manifestation. When a word is given to you, you don't just sit there. If you just sit there and not do anything, you're playing yourself. It's not going to happen. So you really have to be intentional with everything. Get the most out of each season. Learn from each season, pray, and literally pull down the promise of God for your life. There are times where, like, this is like it's supposed to be happening. If you don't see it happening, that's when you have to intensify your prayers. You have to intensify your faith and trust God as if you're a little child. God, you said this is what you're going to do, and I believe that you're going to do it. When is it going to happen? And just be strategic and specific with your prayers. Like, during my season of being single, people would always tell me, like, oh, you look like you got a man. Oh, you look like you da. I'm like, why is it that I look like it but ain't nothing going on? So it's like, no, back to the 3 prayers that I shared with you guys earlier, if you want to go back to it. But I just really wanted this video to encourage someone who is waiting on God for something. Like, God is not a man that He should lie. Like, seek out His word specifically for you and specifically for the thing that you are trusting Him for. I remember there were times where I would come home and I'll just hear a scripture, go to Isaiah this, and then I'll read it, and it's literally in line with what I'm waiting for. And then I will just pray and just really trust God that it would actually happen. It will happen so quickly when the time is right, and God's time is now. So if you feel like you are in the season where it should be happening, that means that it should be happening. And so you need to be literally like pulling it into manifestation. I'm just going to share just an image for you as well. And so one thing that helped me in prayer during this time was seeing time as like a timeline. And so things before God, things are happening simultaneously. And so if, let's say, at this point is where Jesus died, and this point you were born, and this point you were married, it's like everything is laid out in front of God at once, because He doesn't operate in our time. So I see it as like everything is just laid out simultaneously in front of Him. And so if you're supposed to get married on this year and you are here, it's like in the realms of the Spirit, it's already there. You just literally have to pray and believe it out into manifestation. That's the imagery that I always have in my head, that it's a timeline in front of God. And I learned this at a very young age. Everything is a timeline in front of God. If there's something that needs to happen, like, it's already there. I just need to enter it and pull it out by prayer, faith, all of that. I would say focus on becoming and not just finding someone, because you can find the person or the person might find you, and then you haven't even become what you're supposed to be for that relationship. And then I would say to find a place to serve God in the capacity that He needs you to serve at. Grow, continuously grow. I'm still growing, and stay rooted in purpose. And also, don't just settle for the sake of settling and just being with anybody, but actually seek God's mind for it. Like, is this who you're really supposed to be with, or are you just fiending? But yeah, this was a nice chat. I hope you all enjoyed this. I'm definitely coming back, God willing, with more videos on this topic if you all are interested, and God willing, hopefully my husband could join me in one of these videos or some of these videos. And once again, remember that everyone's story is different. It's God is the one who writes each of them specifically tailor-made for you. So if this video has been a blessing for you, be sure to give it a thumbs up and subscribe for more faith-filled content. And I think I'm gonna get back into doing more natural hair videos. Y'all like my hair? Also, feel free to leave a comment with any questions or topics that you would like for me to cover in upcoming videos, and stay tuned for more videos. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you guys in the next video. Bye. He asked me to marry him. He actually likes me. I would see him at church. After that, I will literally avoid him. Singleness is not a waiting room. It's a season of purpose. I needed to be certain that this was the person that I was supposed to be with. The first prayer that I prayed was, had this image of an ideal person, but you yourself, you're not even it. You said this is what you're gonna do, and I believe that you're gonna do it. When is it gonna happen?